get.
Okay, CR's online, I think, unless I lost it,
Yeah, I'm still good.
and we got it now, so.
Recording in progress.
Okay, I call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Smith.
Weatherly.
Aldrich.
Woods. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the June meeting.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Presentation of claims. This month you have a large number of claims in front of you. Most of them are just for supplies in the police department. With the new officers coming in and the old officers left, there's a lot of stuff that was missing and had to be added to. One of the things you'll notice the officers out there, they changed uniform designs and styles. One of the other things we've changed is we did purchase the rifles. Were actually, when we got to try to use them, they were actually damaged. Someone had been in there with a drill tool and worked on them. They wouldn't feed, so by the time you had it fixed, you wasn't buying rifles.
Who's got access to that?
It had to be
Speak up or
a
any-
previous employee.
Speak up. I can hear you.
Okay. So, and also their sidearms. One of the things that is kind of industry standard is the sidearms are owned by the department. That way then if they get pulled because of a shooting or something like that, then the officer's not losing his personal firearm or something. So those are all owned by the department. One of the things, Eli's done a really good job of inventorying everything. So the police department has inventory, serial numbers and all that, and everything from the ammo to the handcuffs to the uniforms, all that. But also we have one in Amy's office too, so we cross that. That's been one of the problems we've had over the last years is the officers aren't keeping them on an inventory. And that's why, just like the badges, we didn't have enough badges, and the badges that were there were all different. I mean, just stuff like that. So we came in, we cleaned the building out, cleaned everything up, and going through everything. So that's all pretty much done. Jetter nozzles, the new jetter came with new nozzles and all that, but we're having trouble getting through some of these larger root masses. So they bought some different jetter tips to go on there for doing some different things. That's what that's for. Sander repair parts, the gearbox actually from the factory. They didn't put a keeper in, so let the gearbox over time work over and actually tear the box up itself. It's out of warranty, but it took a couple of years to do that, so the warranty for 1 year. But then when we tore it apart, that's what we found is the keeper that would hold everything in place was gone, so let the gears walk over and destroy themselves. So it's $1,000 to repair the gearbox.
And the gearbox is for
The
what?
sander.
The sander.
Yeah. So that happened right at the end of the year. We're just getting around to fixing it. Right, that happened right in like the last week that we used the sander. So you have your Mission Valley Power. You have an extra Mission Valley Power there. There's the fees for the power in the park. Northwest Pipe and Fittings. We've done quite a few water installs and sewer installs this last month. And then what I had Mike deal with, we're having trouble getting some of the, like the meter pits and stuff, we're having trouble getting them. The water meters, we've been having trouble getting them. They were in stock, so I had to order multiple of all that stuff instead of doing one at a time. When they had got all the fittings and pipe and meter pits and all that to do multiple installs.
So I see here we spent some money on signs and posts, which I got a brand new one in front of my place, but I don't have, didn't we get city street signs too?
When they get all the signs up, then they'll go back and put all the street signs. Because they'll move, some of them are on like wooden posts and stuff like that, so they'll take them off and they'll move them to the new.
But we do have new, you already bought new street signs, or were you?
No, new street signs haven't been bought, we just have posts, but we're still working on his posts and the stop signs. And then what we had him do while he was out doing it is even existing stop signs that were on rotten posts or different things like that, because the street signs, the mounting brackets for them need to be on a square T-top post instead of buying all kinds of different stuff. So they went around and changed out all the sign posts in town. So they're all square posts, and they just did that. Had a lot of trouble with the old rotten ones falling over and all that, so they went back and they told them, while you're doing it, just go back and replace all the posts. So the next project will be now moving on the street signs to see which ones we need to replace. We have quite a few up in the shop from before too, so just getting them out there, and seeing what we have to do on that. There's an odd one here. Industrial systems is chlorine injection system. That's put in the new chlorine injection system at the lagoons. That system's about 10 years old, and it was having a lot of trouble with it. The electronics and stuff, the pumps were starting to go bad because chlorine is very, very caustic. And their suggestion is that buying all new parts and trying to rebuild it is just buy a new chlorine injection system. It comes all complete. Just put it in, plug it in, and hook the water line up to it.
So are the controls for it somewhere where the chlorine is in the?
It's all built in. It's all built into the deal. But mainly we have trouble with that sodium hydrochloride falling out, and it gets in. Mainly it's the pump and the lines and the way they take and put your briquettes in there. They look like charcoal briquettes. It sprays water on them to make the chlorine solution, and that's that stuff that ends up getting bad. Is all that stuff there. The control system's pretty simple. But your electric eye, your sensors that are down in actually the water to make sure that you have a chlorine solution proper. So that's the stuff that's starting to enable the stuff that's actually has to be in the solution is what the problem is. So, Treasure State Concrete, that was oil for the Durapatcher, the fixed streets. That was $24.19. That was about I think 600 gallons of oil. It was about $4 a gallon for the oil.
Have something for Gamble's.
Yeah, Gamble's is on there. There should be a.
So the Gambles, we did not have a May bill submitted. Whoever runs that.
So there's 2 months.
Because they just get it every time.
Gamble's didn't submit a bill on time for.
For last month, so it's 2 months worth on there, and
2
it's
months,
got,
okay.
yeah.
So you redid all the flooring and painted and.
And then, that was the other thing, and then in the police department, the roof has been leaking, so the ceiling in one spot, the sheetrock had fallen, and the floor, that was put in 15 years ago or so. So we did is pull all the flooring, replace the bad ceiling, redid that, replaced all the flooring, and then painted the building too.
Is that for rodeo?
The bleacher sealant, that's for the rodeo, so we just weathered, just regular, just wood sealant, just put on the bleachers, just to protect the wood a little bit.
It had nothing before, so. there's
Right.
no facts.
Well, if you make it last, since they
That was,
graciously donated.
yeah, make it last a few years, but put the sealant on it, so. Anything else you saw in there?
No. Just a big spender month.
Well, it's
Usually
also,
like a little, it's like, oh geez, this is.
well, also the end of your
It's in your
fiscal year.
Oh, right.
So some of the stuff you need to spend down because some of the strings to some of that money too. You have to
Well, you
spend
have
it
to match.
or you don't get it. That's the other problem is you can't have too much money. Government agencies are not supposed to have savings accounts. I mean, to a point. You need to be taking your tax money needs to be being spent, and it needs to be fairly close. You don't have capital improvements that you're saving for a new pickup or a new pump or something like that. But you can't be just taxing people to have that.
You have to budget to spend over half of your,
There's a formula, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. And well, there's a lot of stuff like right now, and I guess while we're talking about that, next month is going to have some pretty good deals too. Like they're putting a new roof on the well 3 right now. They tore all the roof off, and new plywood, new trusses, new everything. Next they're going to go to the generator building at the lift station, that's gonna be a big road, you know, so we're doing a lot of improvement projects all over the different sites and stuff, so.
So I'll make a motion, we accept the claims for June.
Motion made, seconded. Council discussion. All in favor, aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Financial reports will be presented at the, like WS will be presented at our budget meeting, which will be a little later in the month. Move on to reports. This month's been busy with a lot of different things, and one of the things it's been busy with is the gentleman here today. So we've been talking about the subdivision or the annexation, we annexed what we've been calling the rodeo grounds or the demers or whatever it's going to be called, subdivision, which I'm sure they have a name for it. So we annexed that property in a year ago, and now the property owners hired an engineering firm to come in and do the preliminary work on that. And tonight we have the engineers that are doing that work to give a presentation to the public and the council on going forward with the plan. So the steps are tonight is to present all this, and then later on we'll have a public hearing on the new subdivision and all that for the public to have a little more say. We can present the information to you tonight, and then you have some time to digest that, and then there'll be another public hearing for you to come speak at. If you have any concerns or questions or any of that, for them to answer later on in the month. So we'll turn it over to 406 Engineering. They can introduce themselves and give their presentation.
Hi, I'm Carl. I've been mainly working on this project. My associate, Craig Schaefer. I'm kind of cluttered area here.
Good to see you.
Here, that's right.
Did you turn it on?
It died.
I didn't touch it. Watch
Oh, we
that.
gotta go back into the...
Gotta be new IT guy.
Always,
Everything went to sleep.
So close.
myself included.
We should have had log into Zoom and screen share.
All right.
Sorry, CR.
So as Randy said, the town recently annexed this property near the rodeo grounds. Previously filed as R.J. Jemmers Additions 2, 3, 4, and 5. There have been a few amendments in the time historically, so we're proposing a final plat amendment to make a few changes to what's existing there. What you see, this is a vicinity map, kind of showing the general area, and then kind of the proposed final development, what it might look like. It's all very rough. There's not specific plans for houses or anything, but generally placekeepers, what's going on there. So the developers are JAHS 226 LLC, represented by Andrew Beagle and Chris Schrichta. Engineers are me and Craig, and address 24 acres of property, COS 3558, dedicated amended lot 1 to public lands, which is what became the fairgrounds. So originally there were about 36 lots or so up here that got dedicated to public, which left 53 lots, 6 dedicated right-of-ways. And we had a pre-application meeting discussing how we wanted to amend this plat. Back in February, I talked with Randy about how we wanted to approach it, showed the plan at that time. There's a lot of information on here. It basically summarizes all the changes we're proposing to the plat. So we're increasing a few lots in addition number 2. There will be 12 lots added there. Retracing a few lots adjacent to the canal. It's kind of it's not very well described how this land is dedicated for that canal to be there. So what we'd like to do is propose the property lines to go to the center of the canal and then provide an easement for that canal to be there and have maintenance done. So that affects a few lots. There are several additions that have no changes proposed. These have been in place since 1948, and we don't want to change a lot of them. There will be new easements created so that we can put in cul-de-sacs and turnarounds for some of the lots, and some new right-of-way extending Phillips Street across the canal to access the lots on the west. An extra 20 feet for Martha Street so that we can have a legal alley access, and a new road to access some of the newer lots in addition number 2. These are significant enough changes that we have to go through, like abide the standards of the Montana Subdivision and Plating Act, going through a full review process for those changes. So this is a draft of what that final plat would then look like. As you can see, we've added the additional lots down here, potentially dedicating to common area up here. All this stays the same, and then the lots adjacent to the canal will get a little bit bigger and an easement created for that canal to pass through. As a part of the Plating Act, there's generally a parkland dedication with a subdivision. Calculation for that is shown here, but because all of this land has already been dedicated to public land, that parkland dedication is effectively handled, as this is an amendment to that plat. This is already taking care of that dedication. Environmental assessment, I've got a full report, but this kind of summarizes the factors that we have to look at when going through subdivision review. Surface water on the property includes the Camas Canal. There are some wetland areas that we had delineated and mapped that will be preserved in much of the cases, and the property is not located in a floodplain. Groundwater shows that groundwater is pretty high in the area, probably around 15 feet below ground surface, maybe within 10 feet, but we haven't looked into that more. For engineering utilities, the deeper utilities, we recommend trench plugs to prevent a lot of flow of groundwater along those utility lines. Topography, generally a pretty flat property. Considerations for low-lying areas and high groundwater. Clay soils can be a problem for basements and potentially roads, so we're looking at that. And then we want to make sure there's good placement and compaction fill for all the houses when they get constructed. Vegetation on the property, generally Rocky Mountain Valley grassland, a lot of tall grasses, sagebrush, some pine trees. I walked around and found a few classified noxious weeds. Hound's tongue and Canada thistle. I put together a weed treatment plan just to make sure that these get taken care of and don't get spread. Saw a lot of wildlife in the area while I was walking around. There's some white-tailed deer kind of bedding down, some waterfowl in the canal, so a lot of wetland birds in some of those delineated areas, some small rodents, and I even saw a little fish in the canal. Probable impacts to this development. These are the 7 factors that we have to look at by state law. Effects to agriculture. There's prominent agriculture in the area. This development will be immediately adjacent to some agricultural work. But this is amending an existing residential subdivision, so we're not really taking away agricultural land as it's already set aside for residential development. The water user facilities include the Camas Canal. We will be putting a culvert so we can cross it, but we won't be altering it. Otherwise, it will still exist in its current state. Local services, you'll see additional tax revenue with the additional lots. Additional housing and service. So this will allow other people to move here. I understand you need housing for teachers. It provides that to the community. Effects to the natural environment. It's immediately adjacent to residential and public developments, so it's not like in the middle of nowhere. And again, already platted for residential development, so not a big impact to natural environment on the whole. It may displace some of that wildlife that may be seen, but there's still plenty of space around for them to go. It can affect it, but I think it's negligible. Wildlife habitat, kind of similar story with the bedding. The canal, again, won't be affected. Public health and safety. Neighboring fairgrounds during big events might affect people within the subdivision with some dust kickup. And agricultural activity in the area as well. I noticed a bunch of bees on the property with a bunch of beehives right next door. Those bees can potentially be affected themselves or the people being near those hives. Community impact. So on education and busing, there will be additional housing, but it's with every lot within the subdivision is within half mile of the school that's right there. So whether or not the school wants to expand its bus route, I haven't reached out to that community, but they may want to expand. Provides extra housing for teachers. You'll see increased tax revenue to hopefully help fund that. Roads and maintenance. The proposed roads will be, as I understand, under the authority of Hot Springs, so the town will be responsible for maintaining these roads. 3 new fire hydrants proposed for fire protection and increased revenue for police protection, and I anticipate minimal impact to the police. Then water and sanitation will go through Montana Department of Environmental Quality review. We are planning to propose a municipal facilities exclusion, which allows us to connect to the utilities through the town of Hot Springs. Water and sewer is available. We will be extending those lines, and stormwater will be reviewed by the contracted engineer by the town. And so this shows the general stormwater plan that I put together. It's kind of hard to see at this definition, but this is available in the packet that I've compiled. A lot of the utilities are shown on this plan as well, and some details for stormwater. An HOA has already been established and the covenants filed, so those are available to be reviewed if you'd like to see what kind of restrictions are being placed on this development. And as of right now, we have some permits submitted, but aren't really complete yet. So before this can really be filed, we need to finalize some of these permit applications, including the canal with the Flathead Indian Irrigation Project, the canal crossing, surface water rights, understanding like what rights we have to the Camas Canal water, approval of the easement that we're trying to propose. There's an approach permit that's still kind of in question from MDT. I'm looking in to see, they sent out a representative to verify its construction and just issue the permit, so I'm just waiting to hear from them. We've got the MFE from the DEQ. There's a wetland impact for extending Phillips Street. We do have to fill a little bit, but it's less than 1/10 of an acre, which is generally in an exemption category. And something that we need to arrange with the town of Hot Springs is how we want to come to an agreement as far as subdivision improvements for infrastructure. So what kind of agreement we want to see as far as ensuring that the water and sewer will be completed if this plat is to get filed and recorded, so that we can get utilities out to all the plats. So that's what I got to present. I have much more details in here if that wasn't boring enough. You can read through this packet. I'll answer any questions you have right now.
So I do have a question, but it's more geared towards the town. How would hooking into the water and sewer affect the town? Would that mean that you guys have to put in another well for that subdivision? Like, how does all that?
Well, what we're waiting for, one of the things we need to see is kind of their final plat on how many residential properties and all that to see. Right now, we're running about, and of course, I'm going to talk about EDUs, estimated dwelling units, and that's how we judge the loads on. So like, your house is one EDU, but Hot Springs Convalescent Center is, 20 EDUs. So I mean, that's how we judge size. So on the sewer system, we're running about 450 EDUs right now, and it's sized for 910 EDUs. And one of the things and that was sized that way in 1983, and one of the things you have to remember is in the last 40 years, water usage has dropped down in households. I mean, you went from a 5-gallon flush toilet to a 1.2-gallon flush toilet. You went from a shower head that puts out, 3 gallons a minute to one that puts out 0.8 gallons a minute. I mean, so water usage has dropped down too. So, but the sewer plant and all that is fine. Right now, until we see that and run some numbers, right now the water system, because when we did the water system upgrade, we actually upgraded larger than we needed. So we needed to have 300,000 gallons of storage. We did 400,000 gallons of storage, anticipating the larger, town expansion, whether it be, the Camas bathhouse being put back into operation or subdivisions or that. So until we will run the numbers, we need to get the final numbers from them, and our engineering firm will run those numbers for us. Put it on paper with all the calculations that engineers do, and come up with a number, but we should be still way underneath that. The water system in town is really, we have 3 wells now. Well 3 come online last year. So we're bringing in about 450 gallons a minute into the system. And so we're doing pretty good on that. The lines and everything are all upgraded. So we don't see a problem there, but we'll run those numbers and we'll check that.
You have a business card so I can look in that on Facebook?
Sorry. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd like the business card as an engineer so I can check that out myself.
Yep, I can do that.
Do you have an ETA for completion on your side, an engineer?
So this was obviously like a lot of the preliminary subdivision review. I'm introducing it. We're going into like public comments as far as like the layout and what's going to be developed out here. And my next step is to start jumping into those details of design, proposing like how much water we're going to need, how many units are going to be out there, actually laying it out, getting all the profiles and everything designed. I would expect another month or 2 to get that kind of in line, and it all kind of depends, working with CR, the contracted engineer, getting his approval, and back and forth on that. And then as far as actual construction, Andrew would have a better idea when he's actually wanting to do that. So I would anticipate approval of the subdivision within 3 months, and then construction could occur at any time after that.
So how many phases and how many houses in the first phase, or how is it planned out?
The subdivision, or the plat amendment as a whole, will happen all at once.
Okay.
So all of those lots could be built at any point once that plat amendment is approved.
And that was 53 units at less than half an acre per lot, right?
There were a few that were greater than half an acre, but there
Generally?
are some, yeah.
I know that they had said originally they were going to be bigger lots, so I guess I was thinking bigger than a half acre, but good to know for that too.
So,
Less than
yeah,
an acre.
53 at less than half, and then
So I'm assuming
6
only
between half and 1.
one home per, lot, so we're looking at probably 53 homes.
Let's see, so 59, and then there's potential for multi-family unit living. And from what we've talked about, I anticipate potentially up to 70 living units. Probably less than that, that'd probably be a max.
Would that be like duplex type multifamily or much
Yeah.
larger? Okay.
Curious about the HOA stuff too, was that in that packet?
Yeah, a copy of the covenants is in there.
Maybe you don't want to look at it.
Yes.
Maybe you don't want to leave the place you're at.
Any more questions? Do anyone have any questions for it? Now's the time to ask. Like I said, we're going into the subdivision review, so there will be, we'll do we have to advertise for 15 days when we start that, and then we will have a public meeting then again with him presenting kind of that final piece for the public to be able to look at it all. And that's kind of why I had to come tonight, is for you to get the preliminary, see it, hear it, and be thinking about it and talking about it. That way then when the public meeting comes, it's not all thrown at you at once and you're trying to figure out what's going on. So we're trying to make sure that the public is as informed as possible. And that's why I had to come tonight. Then we'll have to advertise it for 15 days in the county newspaper and around, and then we'll have to have a public meeting for just public comment on this, but that'll be later on. It won't be right away, so.
And I'm not sure, but I think that the way we've always pronounced it, maybe I'm wrong, it's Demers, and you said Demers.
I may be saying it wrong.
Right.
Want to get y'all right fast, man.
So this, what happened in the 40s, what happened is this was all platted. It was all platted to be annexed into Hot Springs. So they did all the steps, they surveyed it, platted the roads, they did all the lots, they did everything. They had the county approve it, because that's how a plat has to go, is that the county commissioners have to approve it, then it comes to the town council for approval. And the county commissioners approved it. When it came back to the town council, it just died. We can't even find any record where the town council even talked about it. So it was platted, accepted by the county, but the town never accepted it. And it was in the 40s when this happened, so you never know what could have been going on. It could have been right after the war or whatever could have been going on in this area. So that's why they just kind of fell out of favor. But once it's accepted by the county, it's a platted piece of property. What they went in and did is change some of those boundary lines, because some of those lots were pretty small. So they put some together and changed some of those lines on some of them. So that's why it ended up in the review process. If they had left it alone, they wouldn't have to do anything. But some of those lots were pretty small. They were.
We've hopefully made it more functional, more accessible, and just a better layout for anyone that lives in there.
How are the lots going to be occupied? I mean, is there already a builder, or are there going to be model homes, or how is it going to be built out? Is that already in the plan? Or?
I don't have it.
Well, I'm one of
Okay.
the representatives, and we are planning on building a model home as soon as everything's approved. And it's, basically single-family homes. It's not necessarily, I am a builder in Flathead, and I don't plan on building all the homes.
We do have
or-
covenances, so there's certain things.
So if
that
somebody
aren't-
buys a lot and wants to build, that's, whatever their color is, that's
Okay.
fine.
So the lots will be for sale, someone can buy the lot, they can pick their own builder?
Yep.
Or they're, like you said, there'll be a model home there?
Yeah, we'll have a model home there,
Okay.
so I'll think maybe two, but,
And if
yeah.
someone likes it, they can rebuild it.
Yep,
Okay. Thank you.
yep, yep.
Is it going to be affordable?
It all depends on how much you want to spend.
You want grander?
Yeah.
Welcome to Hot Springs.
White book that you're referring to that has the details, that's something that's going to be at the town hall, at the city offices, or is that?
It kind of depends on what the town
Can they
council.
get that online?
Will you have both with us, is the question.
Yeah, I will leave
Yes,
this
we'll be
with
in
you.
City Hall if you want to come in, bring your coffee and bring us treats and sit there.
And I can give you a digital copy as
Okay,
well.
that'd be great. Or we can email it to you.
You
Be
don't have to bring cookies.
stimulating reading.
I've had a lot of fun
Caleb,
working
read
on
it.
some exciting stuff.
There's cookies, coffee.
So is there any requirement that you have to make sure that there's some low-income housing as part of this? Like I know some of the big subdivisions, there's always requirement of a certain amount that need to be available for low-income folks.
That can be an approval requirement set by the town. if that's something they want to do.
It seems kind of an important thing, and this is a poor area.
Like I say, that's some of the things I've talked about them over the talks at the preliminary and all that is the housing needs in town. That's one of the housing needs we talked about. That's what they kind of talk about, the multifamily dwellings. So they do townhouses or duplexes or fourplexes or whatever geared towards that type of stuff instead of, and if people buy lots to build whatever house they want. So the town has discussed that with them. Anyone have anything else for you?
At what point in the process do we make those kind of decisions?
Well, we're public comment, and then after the public comment, then we do some reviews, and the council approves that. So
What's whatever they want on that?
there's some time and all
And
that.
generally, you would issue in a letter of approval with conditions of approval. So you say, we approve it on the condition that you also meet these requirements. And then we have to show that we meet those before actually filing.
You don't have any other questions for him? If not, we'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's quite a few things taking up my time this month. As you can see, my arm's in a sling, so I was out of the office for over 2 weeks. I couldn't go to the house, so I lost all my email and stuff. So been kind of busy and that way. Public Works, like I said before, we've been pretty busy. They did a little bit of street repair, doing signs, tree trimming, and doing some construction projects. We brought on just a temporary part-time third hand for the construction projects. So we get them moved along as quick as we can. So I said, some of these roofs, the roof we're redoing now is a 1978 flat roof on the well 3. We pulled the decking and stuff, that was all rotten, but the trusses underneath were rotten too, so we had to replace all that, the ceiling structure and all that, and re-roof it. So they're finishing that up, and like I said, then they go in the blower house, the generator room, and doing that too. So that's these projects haven't been done in years that finally coming due for. So we've been working on them. I think you'll see Public Works out and about we're doing the monthly cleanup. As always, you have to call in, leave your stuff, and you have to leave it out on the street. We're not going to go traipsing through your yard or whatever for it. And remember, we'll haul it to the dump for you if you have a couch or a mattress or a washing machine. If a dump charges for it, we need that money before we haul it. Then we'll haul it for you, not a problem, but if the dump charges $10, we need the $10. Whoever picks it up will give you a receipt and all that, so it's tracked. So that's all taken care of.
Third Thursday of the month.
Fire department, it's been a slow month. They've only had a couple car accidents and one fire, burn barrel. So it's over. Finally got some heat with the grass, so we're probably going to start seeing the fire activity pick up.
We had one up at Big Medicine too, someone dumped there.
Oh, yeah, someone dumped their barbecue out in the tall grass. Wondering why the fire started. So there's some little things like that, but we're right there at it. Fire season is here. Tall grass is now dried out after last week's 90-degree temperatures and the winds, so we're there. The Tribal Fire Management has a crew over here every day now in the area. So if we need help, they'll respond and help us. They have a hand crew and an engine in the area, and their aircraft is coming on slowly. We're going to have a good presence over here again this year. So hopefully we don't have the big fires like we did last year. Hopefully we can keep that in check. Next, we'll turn it over to the police chief here for his report.
Well, a couple of things that we've hit this month, or this past month, is two of the issues that was brought to my attention was some traffic issues in town, stop signs. We're running a stop sign. We've targeted that. We're going to continue targeting that. They're there for a reason. I believe that they were asked to be put in these intersections, so we're going to monitor those. And we're gonna continue working on that and try to improve it, just make it safer. The other thing is the parking in the right of way. Town ordinance says you can't park in the right of way, especially if you don't have a tag or insurance on it. The state law, Montana state law also says 5 days in a city setting, it can't be set more than 5 days. So if you're driving your car in every day or every other day, excuse me, it's fine.
I know.
He's mad at me.
Hey, Jesus, you need to shower.
So, but if you're driving the car, things like that, then it's fine. We don't mind you parking there, just as long as it's moved. It's just not sitting there and tires are flat. And I've seen some cars around town that the front tires are flat and the grass is growing up around the tires, but it does have tags on it. And that's where we use the Montana law statute, that we need to keep them moved, and we need to make sure that they're parked in the right direction. Because also we've seen some around here that's been parked illegally, which parked against the flow of traffic. We just want to do the right thing. We want to make sure our city streets are cleaned up. One thing I also want to bring to everybody's attention is we're seeing petty theft starting to pick up a little more. We're going to start, talking to the mayor today, we're going to start doing a little bit more second shift now that we've got the new officer kind of trained and feeling good, and I'm here a little more. We've got Gary's back working. We're going to try to do a little more second shift, night shift type stuff, just to be out and about. Hopefully we'll nip this in the bud with the petty theft and kind of cut down on that. So, yes,
Can I
ma'am.
ask you a question?
Sure.
You're talking about the stop signs. What is it that you're seeing people doing at the stop signs or not doing specifically?
Coming to a complete stop.
Okay.
And what I've told my officers is the way I've always done it is I'll sit and watch the stop sign and I'll watch your tires. If your tires never come to a complete stop, then you fail to come to a complete stop. The law says you have to come to a complete stop. And you're supposed to come to a complete stop, look both ways, before you proceed.
Can I say a caveat of that?
Sure.
Another thing I've been noticing, and I've talked to quite a few people on it, given just as many warnings I have tickets, watching people, and they don't even attempt to stop. They're just rolling right through the stop signs, which happens a lot.
And a lot of them are on their cell phones, and Hot Springs has an ordinance against being on your cell phone when you're driving in town.
So,
And for folks' information, because I know there's been a lot of fuss over it, but I've sat right there in front of Happy Day Cafe on that gravel strip. It's plain view, right? I've watched people roll right through and make eye contact with me and roll through those stop signs several times. So it is happening a lot.
and it probably was not enforced by the last chief of police and officers. But that's one of the things that brought to my attention. And I was hired to do this job, and like I said, I can only enforce them. I don't make them. And that's what we're going to do. So.
I'd like to see it done in a less aggressive manner.
I agree.
I agree that they broke the law, they deserve to be pulled over, but not everybody driving around here in town is a felon, especially an 80-year-old lady. Don't need to be aggressive like that.
Well, and when they're making eye contact with you and still doing it, and I'm not saying that they're all like this, because some of them are probably blatant and naughty, but, they feel like they're making the same stop they've always made their whole life,
Right.
and that it's acceptable. So it's a shock. Everybody's feeling picked on.
Absolutely. So when you mean less
Well,
aggressive?
hey, that's what I'm saying. I felt like I made a stop, and I got pulled over this
I'm right
morning.
here on our Lee Street, so I see an awful
I was like,
lot
what did I do
right
wrong?
outside our
I
shop,
saw.
and I've witnessed some aggressive behavior. And I think if we're going to pull somebody over, we should make sure that it's done in a safe spot too. I mean, if the person rolls into where there's a wide spot where you can both safely be there and not have to impede traffic or anything else.
Right.
Yeah, because it's a shock to people.
Good job, Ed.
For sure.
Yes,
Well,
thank
You
you.
gotta have common sense.
But it is a lot.
And
It is a lot, and there's
warnings
no
are a
problem
nice
with
thing
writing a
too.
ticket
Right.
for breaking the law.
Well, and
I just think we can be a
changing
little more
people's
cool about it.
mentality.
Well, just give them a verbal warning. I mean, just say, well,
I don't think that's necessary.
So to go up warnings, as I said, I've given more warnings than I have tickets. But I've actually had people quit back with, well, aren't you just going to give me a warning? And like asking for it, it's like asking for a tip at a restaurant. Come on,
And one of the things, let me explain this. There's three of us out here. Officer discretion is one thing that is approved in Supreme Court, which means I can't tell this officer if he has to write a ticket, because we don't do that. And I can't tell him he has to write a warning. It's whatever he decides to do and the officer decides to do. I can only control what I decide to do when I'm on a traffic stop. So, and I'm not going to tell them that they have to write a ticket or they have to write a warning. I agree that warnings are just as fair, but tickets are too. That's what they're there for. You broke the law. This is your punishment, or this is your fine, or whatever, how you want to look at it. And then we move on. Hopefully, by doing this, and with the spread of Facebook that I've seen, hopefully this will nip it and people will start stopping at stop signs, problem solved.
I've already seen improvement of people stopping, personally, because when I worked at the bank one night, we watched 34 people go through the stop sign, 2 people stopped.
Right.
Out of 34.
Right.
And when I used to get tired of people coming down Main Street this way and flipping into the bank because they can't walk across the street. But and people would come in and I'd say, we don't drive like that in Hot Springs. Just because we're Hot Springs doesn't mean you don't have to follow the rules. You leave town once in a while, and you can't be an idiot when you leave town.
And we just want to make it safer. That was one of the things, and I agree with what Dave was saying. We probably can do a little better job. And a lot of that is, I'm from another state. I've got over 20 years law enforcement experience. However, I've got to learn Montana law, so I'm still learning as well. Eli here has got to go to the academy, so he's still learning. So we want to improve, and we want to do a better job, because we're here for you guys.
And you gotta remember, the stop signs, a lot of them were just put up, so people are just getting used to seeing them everywhere.
Right.
I mean, I always stop at those places anyway. Well, yeah, I mean, I always did anyway, because it's obvious, but, a lot of
It's like, oops.
Yeah. Well, it's when you're pulling up by Spring Street,
You have to go through the stop sign to
to
see around the
see
corner.
down the street.
Right.
But if the rig
it's a
stop, makes a complete stop, then they can inch out. If they can't see around some vehicles in the intersection, they can inch out after they stop.
Yes, that was one that.
So we'll make it short, because I know we've got other things to cover, but just with that being said, if you're making a complete stop or an attempt to complete stop and you pull forward a little bit to see, we have no problem with that. But the day that we were out here pulling several cars over, one after the other, we had actually officers with their lights on when a car stopped, and people were still running stop signs.
I saw one pull in front of our officer without making a stop. They were coming into town, making a turn towards the bank, and someone ran the stop sign at the post office in front of the cop.
While the other one's down the street with the red and blue lights flashing.
They knew that
Because they know he's busy.
But some of the other things we have to remember as citizens, and so law enforcement has different avenues to all this, and we forget that there's more to it. So I know one of the posts on Facebook is why are they worried about stop signs and meth heads? Meth heads, petty theft, all that. You're driving around town doing that, correct? Or hauling drugs or doing whatever. So the officers need a tool to stop them. They can't just pull you over because they think you've got drugs in your car. So if Hot Springs is known for traffic laws, if you've got a carload of meth, are you going to come to Hot Springs? Or if you're out stealing stuff and throwing it in the back seat, are you going to do it in town anymore? I mean, the odds of you getting caught because the law enforcement is actually enforcing the laws. Criminals don't want to be around places where law enforcement is out active. That's the other part of it. So when they see law enforcement out active actually doing stuff, criminals don't want to be there with them. They want to be somewhere else. They want to get out there. So it's a trickle down effect. They're out there, they're being active, they're out in the public, they're making contacts. Do they need to learn some things and tweak it a little? Probably. But that's all part of the learning curve. As we can come in and have complaints, is what they do with the complaints now. So on. And what's interesting to me, though, is one of the ladies that sat there chewing on me about my officers need to be writing stop sign tickets, and she sat there while her headlight was being changed at my shop. for 15 minutes, and she saw this number of cars go through and only 2 stop, and they need to be writing tickets. She was actually the first one in City Hall complaining our officers are writing tickets. So, I mean, what do you do? She sat right there and complained to me for 15 minutes about it, then comes to City Hall a week later and is mad because they're writing tickets. She just got done. She was one of the people that, and I've had lots of people. I mean, I had people come to me all the time about the stop sign violations. It's just continuous.
I said that too to numerous people that said that to me. And I said, you know, how are you going to catch these meth heads if you don't pull somebody over for an infraction, and then you might find out they don't have insurance, driver's license, and a bag of meth.
That's right.
Well, she didn't have meth, but Papa didn't have insurance or driver's license.
They did.
Hey Ed, quit talking about me.
So, if no one has any more questions for the police, we'll move on.
I just want to say real quick to the town, thank you for putting up the stop sign. That does regulate traffic a whole lot better than we have to do.
I agree, I was glad to see
Very
that
good.
goes up. And I want to say one more thing about the officers. We are really excited to get these guys, and they want to be out in the community. We're excited to have a positive presence. And now I feel like it's kind of become a negative thing, but hang in there. They're really great, and it's a good thing.
I think they were doing great.
Yeah. Good job, guys.
I thought I was getting beat up.
Well, you're done.
Started out of town.
I heard the stickers don't come off.
Council.
Yeah, the worst you get beat up by is a former cop, because they'll beat you up.
Does the clerk have anything?
I do. We had a guy in today. They are going to start construction out on the Perma Bridge. The Perma Bridge will be a 1-lane bridge for pretty much the entire summer, is my understanding. There will be a 3 to 4 day time period, I believe. They don't have the exact date, but the end of July, beginning of August, where you will not be able to cross the bridge at all. It will be completely shut down for a 3 to 4 day period. I have the flyers in the office. If you guys want a copy, I can make you copies. There's numbers you can put in so that you can get text message updates or email updates for that. There's also a phone number you can call. I just know that that route is going to be either one, backed up with 1-lane traffic, or else for
Yeah,
for
DOT
days.
came around today.
Yeah,
Put out a bunch.
they came around, they're going around everywhere trying to make sure everyone's updated, but if you guys need a copy of that flyer, I do have it, we can give you a copy.
Okay. Anything else? Library?
Library, the Friends of the Library are having their annual make an offer rummage sale on July 22nd. And they're also going to have an old-fashioned bake sale. And they are accepting donations, and anybody can drop them off at the library, or if you need anything picked up, you can call the library. And also the library went around and filled in the holes in the siding and did some sprucing up that way.
Okay. Zoning compliance, this one's been busy with lots of questions, but paperwork across my desk, really nothing yet, but we do have some people who want new water sewer lines. Mike just did a new water sewer line on one of the new ones, and we've had some lots sold down on Spring Street. They're requesting water sewer lines installed. We did have a couple, actually, it was interesting, one of those, the tiny house stuff up on, behind the on the hill, second and whatever, anyways. One of those things we told him when about dividing these lots, you can't do that because then there'd be less than 5 houses to do the project. And no, I'll never do that, So we put the wording in the file, and so he came to me the other day wanting to divide these lots. So I don't know if he can't do that, so he's got to come up with a different solution there. So we're got just a lot of things going on and working on a lot of little projects. So far everything's been mainly just additions to the town, some new garages and stuff like that going in. Okay, moving on to new business. The first one here is discussion on zoning map changes. So I doodled some zoning map changes, and there's another one of those things we'll have more public comment on. We're not going to make a decision tonight, it's just a discussion only. So adding some of the properties that are in like residential B, like the convalescent center should be commercial. And then there were some properties that were designated commercial B, that probably should go A. Commercial properties that need to go to commercial residential instead of commercial, because all it said was houses anyways. Like everything right here.
Yes.
Kiva's all the way up.
All the way
That's Jackie's.
Yeah.
So
that's all right.
why that got put in as commercial, I don't know, because it's all residential houses. The main thing we're looking at then is down, of course, changing on Orchard Street. That's why this came about, is we had a citizen want to change, it's residential B, he wants to change half a block to commercial residential. And then we have some stuff on A Street and B Street and Broadway that's zoned commercial, that should be commercial residential too. So, and if you don't know our zoning laws, commercial means you're not actually supposed to have a residence unless the residence is tied to business. Commercial residential, then you can have a business on one lot, but then you can have a residence on another. It just has to fit class B residential zoning. So really, it's not affecting it. It's actually lightening the zoning rules. Is what it's going to do on most of this property. So we're not making anything more restrictive. It's actually lightening it. So
Thank you.
So what you have there is doodles, because we haven't really had a meeting, so I just kind of wrote stuff down on here. It says CR as commercial residential, B is B, commercial is just C. So, and we'll be discussing it in another meeting, but just want to get that out there if anyone had any questions on any of it. That industrial piece needs to go away.
Yeah, because it won't be industrial when Brad
It's even in the wrong, it's even in the wrong spot.
Yeah, it is.
It's so yeah, it's that the industrial should have went away. That should have went away.
We don't have any
That would just be
industrial
commercial.
right now. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and the reason they did that, when I checked into it, they did the industrial because the owner of that complex was trying to get some money through a loan process. We had to be in an industrial zone before they loan the money. So that's why they sold it.
See you guys.
So if no one has any questions on that, we'll move on. Like I said, we'll be talking about this more before we ever finalize or talk about it. So it's just getting the information out there to everyone, have some, take a look at it and think about it. Next item is AFR 2023 contract. We did not receive that, so we're not doing any discussion tonight on that. Next item is reserve officer policy. So in your packet, it's one of the things, we had a very vague reserve officer policy. So when a reserve officer comes in to help the police department here, it was a very vague contract. So the chief rewrote that, and it was reviewed by our attorney. So it has some stipulations in there. They have to work so much, they have to provide, it's more of their, we kind of switched it. Under the last administration, it was more of, we need the reserves because we need them and they're going to help us out. The chief now feels, no, the reserves need us because they need a place to go and hang out and do this stuff. So we've kind of switched how the reserves are looked at.
I had one question on that. On the first page, it talks about you have to sign a 3-year contract and get hired. Or you're supposed, when you're hired, you're supposed to be here for 3 years. Under employment on the first page.
That's gonna be the one.
You're the wrong one.
You're the wrong one.
Oh, that.
Yeah, go to the reserve officer. Yeah, they'll be next.
I got too much police stuff.
Yeah. So the reserve policy is good.
So they've got to be post-certified.
No, they can either be post-certified or they can be certified as a reserve, or if we if we decide to hire them on, we can also send them to a reserve class. The biggest change in here is I'm requiring them to do more time. We're giving them a badge and we're giving them credentials, saying they're a police officer. we expect something in return. I expect them to come and work, not once a year.
Exactly.
Do they get it done?
And as far
That will.
as the training, you
They have to
will,
provide their own.
They'll have to provide their own weapon, yeah.
but you can train them.
Yes, we can train them.
You don't have to go to that.
No, they don't have to go to post. We can actually perform our own training per state law.
Would that be something for the reserve officers, like we've got events in town, maybe have some more presence for that type of thing?
Yes, and it comes into play like with the homesteaders, and of course they use them when the banditos come. But when things growing, and I know that talking to the mayor, it'd be nice if more things happen down at the rodeo grounds, maybe other people contract in. But there's only 2 full-time officers and 1 part-time officer. So if we can use these guys to fill the gaps, because we don't want to, if we have an event down there, we don't want to have to sit down there the whole time. We still need people patrolling the town. So we want to get more bang for our buck. It's just,
Well,
And it's
you're
20 hours
asking,
quarterly, so
you're
it's not-
asking them to put in what, how many hours?
20 hours a quarter.
20 hours
Yeah.
a quarter, that's
quarter.
pretty reasonable.
And that's reasonable. I think so,
Yeah.
especially with some of these guys, they do live far off, so, it gives them, but we want something in return. We're gonna give you a little card that says that you're a police officer. We're taking that responsibility, so we want you to come.
Very good, Chief.
So,
Okay. Any other questions?
You're voting on this?
You're voting on this.
Okay, I make the motion, we accept the Hot Springs Reserve Police Program Policy Manual.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any council discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item. Now, we have police officer contract for post-academy training for Patton. Eli Patton come to us, he's not post-certified, he has actually more hours of police training on a different level for security side and stuff from the military and the government contracts, but he lacks a little bit of the traffic stop, those basic police officer skills. So he's actually got more hours he's going to put into post on another side of it in the background, but not in that. So the state is going to require him to attend the academy in September. Actually start doing some paperwork on their classes online in August. So with that though, it's standard now in the state of Montana to have a contract for that. So that's the Hot Springs Police Department employment contract. So that's what is in front of you. That's been reviewed by the attorney. There's some real in that, the highlighted version. And that will require him to provide 3 years of service to us. If he leaves before then there is an amount in there that he'll have to pay back depending on the time served to the department. So the academy, what happens is the academy is actually inexpensive. It's $1,500. But by statute, we have to pay his wages. Well, he's gone for 2 months to the academy.
12 weeks.
12 weeks.
12 weeks.
So he's getting paid. So he's not here doing anything for us. He's at school, but we still have to pay him 40 hours a week. So it's just, we're providing, getting him the training. It doesn't cost the town a lot. We're just missing an officer for 3 months. But also then the agreement then is that he will stay here or refund us some of that money if he leaves. If he leaves at 2.5 years, well, it's going to be very little money. If he leaves in 6 months, well, it's quite a bit. So, and that's all spelled out in the contract.
I say that 3 years is exorbitant for the city of a size of this. I'd say 1 year contract. That way he finishes his post, because he's got to do the 6 months through post to get certified, and then he becomes a full-time law enforcement officer. You're telling him that we're going to use him as a slave for 3 years? I know. I mean, come on, Chief.
Yes.
Hefe, come on. I mean,
We got a reputation of paying for a bunch of people going through academy, and then as soon as they get their badge, they quit and leave.
That's
So
what I'm saying.
they gotta stay here for a bit if we're gonna put them through school.
But it's not holding him to his standard of being a slave. It's holding him to his standard of we're investing in him. And that's across the board, statewide, even from where I'm from, South Carolina. If you went to the police academy and an agency sent you, they made you sign a contract And what happens with that, it doesn't mean that he necessarily may have to pay that back, but just say that in a year and a half, he says, you know what? Flathead County's paying a whole lot more money, and they've hired me. Well, then Flathead County can also buy his contract out, or the remainder of his contract. So what that does, it just means we get reimbursed, because now we gotta turn around, hire
Hire
somebody
another
else.
person, put it back to the academy.
Yep.
Chief, you're talking to somebody
Right.
else, okay? I say 3 years is exorbitant. I'd say 2 years.
No.
I mean, come on,
3
let's
years.
be realistic.
3 years is low.
You know, in 2 years, this man may find himself
It's all over the state.
going to,
Across the state, it's an average of 3 years, and as of right now, he is a full-time officer. He does not have to have his post.
But he doesn't have to go somewhere to do this, he can
So
do it
he is
online.
already employed by the
The
town
first
as a
month is
full-time
on, no
officer.
extra help.
Once he's been here a year, gone through the
Okay.
academy,
That's 3
he
months
has
starting
his
in
post
September.
certification title.
October, November.
So
That might be a
that's
hairy
kind of where
ride in
you're almost a
November.
year into it
Well,
before he ever
he's gonna-
gets done with the
I totally agree.
certification process.
And all we did was we mirrored every other agency around here.
Okay.
So it's not that we come up with this on our own. This is, like I said, it's kind of a standard across the board. Montana, Idaho, just about every state. And all we did was we adopted what they had, because we thought it was fair. And we sat down with Eli, and he thought it was fair as well.
Yeah, he's going in eyes wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
And we don't want to go in.
Eli.
You're right, yeah.
Good.
5 years.
Is good. I'm just saying, I'm being I'm on his side.
Right.
Eli, I'm on your side here when I'm trying to.
I
you
know
know.
where that is.
I can't think of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
Okay.
Any
Well, we need
other
a
questions
motion
from the
on that.
public? If you're hearing none, need a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept the new Hot Springs Police Department employment contract.
Second.
Motion made second, any council discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is blower control contract. So that's in front of you from Morrison Merrily. So that is the standard contract from Morrison Merrily to do the engineering. And there's a timeline on there for the design, implementation, and that their total expenses as per the contract will be $65,000 for all the way through. So that'll be for
I had one question on that. On the construction administration costs, line E, we get one engineering progress inspection. What part of the construction is the engineer going to check the progress if we only get one?
well, CR, are you online still?
I'm getting back.
Yes, I'm still on.
So the question is drafted to you under number 3, construction administration. E says conduct one engineer progress inspection. So you're gonna come once, or are you gonna have someone here the whole time when they're working like on the other projects?
No, we're just gonna do a periodic inspection. We'll do a final inspection, typically for building projects. We don't just sit there and watch them. You know, we'll probably go check on it, kind of midway through, kind of at a critical point. And then, we'll inspect them at the end. And that was basically just to, reduce our engineering fee. So it didn't become too outrageous. We could definitely, either full-time if you'd like. That's no problem. We can have somebody there more if you'd like.
No, that's the point I was making. If this contract says we get one progress inspection and you saying we need more than one, is that an extra?
No, I mean, unless something changes that would.
So if we hire the low bidder, as Hot Springs does, and then that contractor has never done an electrical project before, as Hot Springs hires them, and we get there, you need to come down 2 or 3 times, then who's on the cuff for that?
Well, we try to work with the town. I mean, we haven't passed with that kind of thing. I mean, if it becomes something that's, blatantly outrageous, then we have to discuss it, and that's contractually, that's what it says. You know, if we have one extra trip or something, you know, we hopefully throw that cost in our fee, but, you know, if there's concern about that, we can definitely increase that right now, you know.
Well, no, one of the things I guess.
I want 2 visits for the price of 1.
Ed would like you to also bring him donuts.
So normally on most of these projects, because there's a little more to it than just the, you know, the visits, there's the preparing the final and all that. So I'm gonna guess it probably would end up being here because we're gonna have to do some walkthroughs and stuff like that. So you'd probably end up being there a couple times anyways before the project was done.
And being that I don't have an electrical background, I have another question. Are you going to spec out the electrical gear, or is that up to the electrical contractor to say, I'm using this product, which I can buy off of Amazon for dirt cheap?
Well, we typically would specify, you know, more general materials, but we can take, you know, any kind of recommendation from the town, you know, on certain parts. I mean, we can't really sole source without good cause because we have public money involved. So
And I was going to say that's one of the problems with using public money is we can't say you're going to buy a GE style this.
Or can't there be 3 different reputable gears?
Well, what you end up doing is you end up speccing it as close as possible, and that's what we found out. Just like at the lift station with the auger plant, is we spec that pretty tight that it should have been this one brand is the only brand that'll meet the specs. This other company steps up and they have their engineer says yes, it meets your specs. Well, you have to take it. You can't. They force you into taking it.
Because when you get into electronics like VFDs, I mean, they're good, better, and best. And the low bidder's going to give you the worst one that you got off of Amazon.
So we can work with that on the specs when the electrical engineer gets to that point, because we can work on the specs to tighten that down. But one of the rules is out there, because we are using public money, is you can't say, I want you to buy this one from this guy. They just won't let you do that.
Right. So they can be spec'd out.
You can spec it out here, right, so that those specs are pretty tight on it, that it almost has to be that best one. So,
Gotta find some
Randy,
trust.
what's the blower control, real quick?
so at the sewer lagoons, we have 3 ponds out there. What we do is we inject air into them. It's a bubbler system that injects air underwater. And the reason they're there is for the bacteria growth. So the bacteria, of course, is eating the poop, and we don't want any algae growth. So we have to inject air, and we're looking for an optimum dissolved oxygen in the water. So we inject so much air every day, and the operator then tests the water on a daily, weekly basis to see where our dissolved oxygen is. So if the bacteria is working right, and we don't have any algae, and we got the desired dissolved oxygen, you can go out there right now and walk around the lagoons, and you can't tell you're at a sewer lagoons. The pond next door smells worse than the lagoons. There's no smell there at all. So then what we're doing, though, is on the motors, we're putting on variable speed drives. So it's looking at how much air is being put in, and the motor can adjust to work as much as it needs. So it's 20 horsepower motor, but maybe it only needs 10 horsepower to run that blower that day because we only need a little bit. The drive will step that down, so we're only using 10 horsepower out of it. And in fact, just to explain it kind of layman's terms, instead of, like right now, a 20 horsepower blower is blowing full speed all the time. But like in the winter time or different times when we can slow that down, that drive will do that, it'll bring that down. The other thing right now is we're running, the way the old control panel was put in 83, is still the original control panel. So we're going to update the control panel so the blowers will alternate, and they'll come on different ways for different things. So the other thing this time of year that we really worry about is the ponds are about 12 feet deep, and we worry about water roll. So that pond will have cold water at the bottom, and then during the heating time of the day, it'll heat the top water hot. And now hot water has less density than cold water. The pond will flip. And when it flips, it is extremely gross. So all that floatable poop, stink comes. And then now you have a problem, and now you have debris, you have all kinds of stuff. So that's the other thing. So those blowers have to be running at optimum times of the day to be circulating that water. And so there's quite a little science to it when you're operating the blower. So in effect, with this new control panel, we can control blowers better, but also save energy in the end. I mean, they're going to be, so when they're running on 10 horsepower, we're going to have half the power bill. So. But if we need full 20 horsepower, they'll ramp up too. So they'll be able to change that. So.
And can I just add, I guess, if we submit the drawing specifications to the town to review, so if you guys like to review the specs and provide input or electrical equipment or requirements, that's by all means, submit that to the town to review before we bid it out. So.
But they do all the paperwork. So one of the questions, KO has this funding application.
Oh, sorry,
assistance.
share, yeah.
So the funding application assistance was $9,800. They did the application, they do the administration of that, and they do it all the way through. So the town doesn't, we didn't write the grant, they did.
Sure.
They've done
It's just a
all
large
this.
percentage of the total, so I was thinking.
Well, that's just this is what's the total price on this, CR?
Well, I mean,
On the entire project,
Yeah.
you said 65 or somewhere like that?
Yeah,
sorry.
that's what I'm looking at, it's the total 65.
No, on the whole project for the VFDs and everything. Whole construction. So that's gonna be the whole project cost?
I think it's the mid 200,000 that we
I was gonna say, I think it was.
That would look less shocking.
Yeah. So this is just the engineering cost.
Okay, I'm like, yeah.
So the
10,000.
construction side, this is gonna be around $200,000, so.
So that is for the total.
Right.
Not the 65.
Right.
Okay, I'm happy with that.
So just to quick explain something, so the grant applications on any of these are insane.
I'm sure that
There's page after page after page, and then you have to enter them. If they're not entered quite right, or there's a wording wrong, you have to redo it and do this and do that different. When we work with these guys, Sierra will send me a list. Amy, I need this, this, and this, and then pretty soon it's magically done.
Yeah.
And then
Worth
grant,
$10,000.
That's right.
grant application, when it's done, is the size of that book right there. That's all.
Yeah, matter of fact, I
That's-
have 2 books like this right now that we just got from the last one. Yeah.
So
Fair
they have people that just specialize.
I'll be putting in more time than that for my own project. So.
Right. That's one of those things that they specialize in them, doing them every day, all day long, so it makes it easier too. So. Do I have a motion to approve the contract?
I'll make a motion. We approve the Morrison Merrily engineering contract for the blower control.
I'll say.
Motion made second, council discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is Hot Springs Refuse. We're still in the legal department, so what we did is we went back to the county. The county dug up all the records. They hired a law firm to look into it for us, so they're making sure everything's done exactly right, so it can't ever come back on anybody. So they dug into it, they found how it was formed, they found how it was supposed to be operated, they found all the founding documents. It took a few weeks to find all that. So what they come up with is, what's going to end up happening is the Hot Springs Refuse District will stay intact. They'll still have their same board. That board will meet once a year, and to renew the contract with the town of Hot Springs, how that would work. So we're still waiting on the final documentation on that to look at. We haven't seen it yet, so.
I talked to Lauren, and he said the interlocal agreement has been sent to MMIA. They're having their attorneys at MMIA review them, because it's interlocal agreements are pretty, they seem simple when you read them, because it's just this, this, and this, but you have to have just the right thing, just the right wording, and he's working with Derek to make sure that everything is correct. And once MMIA approves it, then it'll go to the county, and then once the county approves it, then it'll come to our council for approval.
So.
I thought the board didn't want to be the board anymore.
They
so
don't
they're
want to
still
be,
gonna-
here's the problem, is the way it was set up. See, that's on the original documents. So if the board wants to abolish themselves and all that, they actually have to kill the refuse district completely and we'd have to reform it. So they have to stay in place and they just subcontract to us.
And they're willing to do that, so
Yeah.
that'll all work out.
Well, yeah, I think if they only have one meeting a year, they're pretty happy about that, and someone else does all the work.
Fair enough.
So the county, if anyone's read the newspaper, but the county did this before the newspaper came out, they've hired a law firm to overlook all contracts, and this law firm specializes in contracts, that's why it's kind of a little more convoluted, which is good for everybody. I mean, they're going through all of it and making sure everything is done properly. So this firm they hired just specializes in contracts. I know I sit on the fair board too, and all of our fair contracts and everything. We write out what we want, we send to them, and they put all the legal wording to it and send it back. I mean, it's,
And that's kind of what Lauren did with, even though he's an attorney, he doesn't do that with this, yeah.
And it's always good to have a couple of attorneys look at it, because you're looking for different things, seeing different things. So that's where it's at. So it's still on track, it's just gonna take a little bit longer to get it all. So hopefully at the next meeting, it'll be a little more, we'll have some there. So as soon as we get information and stuff, we'll get out to you guys to start reviewing it, to see if you have questions and stuff.
So Kevin is hired as a permanent?
The town of Hot Springs has nothing to do with the dumping.
So at this point, that's
We have
just
nothing
their.
to do with anything
Okay.
out there. No.
Okay, so that was not.
Hot Springs Refuge District is still running their board is still running their dumping.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
It looks better.
yeah, they've been cleaning, I mean, that's been kind of a big deal is
All
cleaning.
3 cans were open when I was there, though. I was like, Randy, oh, you
Oh,
like
yeah,
that?
Well, they all 3 were closed when I got there.
Oh,
And one of them
well,
was
that's
empty.
not good either.
So the way the facility, they kind of asked the question, so I kind of told them how I would run the facility. I was in charge. And 1 can at a time should be open until that can is almost full, then you open your second can. It just helps with, you don't want all 3 cans full at once, because the second phase of this is, we have a subsidiary contractor that comes in hauls, so that's Republic. Well, they're busy, they have trouble finding drivers, and they have trouble, I mean, they're behind too. So as soon as we have 2 full cans, we call Republic to come get the 2 full cans. So we can't have 3 or 4 full cans, now we're behind. See, so as soon as you have 2 full, then get Republic coming, because it might take a week before they get there. You just got, it's just a process. We're not the only ones, we got other steps involved. And actually Republic just raised their fees again. Tipping fee went up to over $40 a ton, and trucking went up to over $500 a container. So, some of those things that.
Are we gonna get the cardboard recycling back?
The cardboard recycling will come back. I have a guy that will come and do that. The thing with cardboard, and this is something I don't understand why people don't understand this, brown cardboard only, cannot be colored cardboard, cannot have tape on it, cannot have styrofoam in it, can't have any of that. So what was happening is our cardboard was so mixed, Republic was just dumping it in the landfill. They weren't even looking at it. So that's why they quit doing the recycling out here. Republic said no more.
Well, that-
The other part of it was it's out in the open, so when it fills with snow and water, then they go to dump the can, and it won't come, the cardboard won't come out because it's wet and frozen in the can. And then they gotta get an excavator up there and empty the can. And so when we get it, there'll be more recycling there, not only the cardboard. Actually, I even talked to a guy that will come do appliances. He has a grinder, and then they bale them, and then they truck them. He said those go to Salt Lake City, is where those go. So the recycling and all that will become more into play, but and that's not going to happen instantly either. Of course, we got to get the facility and start on some other projects out there, but making the facility larger so we can have recycling bins and stuff like that for those different items. And then the big thing is just training people to put the right stuff in the right can. You put aluminum in aluminum, steel in steel, not just sticking your whole garbage sack in there. So we're working on that. That's the plan. The plan is to do all that. And actually, I have a cardboard guy. And actually, what's interesting is he goes to Republic and gets all his cardboard that he does. Republic, he goes down to the recycling center, picks it up, and bales it and ships it himself to the facility. So next item is the pickleball court location. So we'll let the pickleball people tell you what they're going to do.
What we're going to do. What we're trying to do. We went and looked at the proposed area. It's a swamp. It's got cattails, it's got running water. Yeah, I didn't have my gum boots on, so I didn't go very close to it, you know.
You want a place to play?
Yeah, it's not gonna work, it won't last, and it'll fall apart. It's
Well, and
just-
I think part of us too, when we were looking at it, we're like, oh man, if we have to cut down some of these trees and the cattails and all this stuff, we're gonna be hated more than the police officers writing the stop sign tickets, so. But as we were looking though, we were looking behind the library area in there. It's more level and it's past the little cattail area and that type of thing. But then we were looking on cadastral, and the library is actually county property. The building is city property. The library land it says Sanders County on cadastral.
Yep.
So then it would be us having to deal with the county there, but yet we still want to be involved with the city, with
Or
the
just
Parks
go to
and
the
Rec.
commissioners and ask them to give the land to the town.
Well, that's what we're here to ask.
That's what we're here to ask, because we
They
are
can do
willing to
that.
go approach the commissioners, and if not willing to give us the land, or is there a way we could put a cooperative agreement, because there's cooperative agreement for the library now.
I would talk to Dan Rowan.
Dan,
Dan would be the
I
one
know
that would, he would be the one that could be able to answer you probably right away. I mean,
Yeah.
he's pretty involved, and since he was the mayor of Plains, they did a lot of that land swap stuff with the county
Okay.
and all that. He's probably a little more in tune to how to do that and go through that. I know that the county was gonna give the town some other properties around at one time, and the way the commissioners talked at that time, it was a different set of commissioners, but they said it was no big deal, it's just something they do in the county.
Okay. Yeah, we were gonna.
Since it's one government agency to another, it's not doing
Right,
anything. so.
right. And I happened to, when we had looked at that, I did also, we had a library board meeting, and after the library board meeting, I just discussed with the library board about that property, if they had any other projects in the future that they might, and they were happy to have something that didn't need to be mowed, and that people would.
So you're gonna do it up on the flat or down over the
So
back?
I think it
It would
would
have
all
to take
that.
some fill.
Yeah, it takes some fill, or, it's just logistically, the other area that was suggested, it just, when we went and actually looked at it, it was like, ooh, this is, really swampy and that type of thing, and then we're like, well, what about this right here? And we thought it was city, and
Yeah,
so
we
we
did.
didn't think it was gonna be a big deal, but we were also trying to figure out that, because the two lots right behind the park, that's already level, but they're owned from people out of state or whatever, and, so then, so then we thought, well, this would be good here, but then kept on walking and thought, well, that would be also another alternative too. So we will go talk to Dan and go talk to the commissioners and see what we can do with that too. We're trying to keep the city involved
And
informed with what we've got going. And then when we had our pancake breakfast,
We made over $1,000 selling pancakes. We ran out of food, and we're starting to turn people away. And here came Paula Stobie, who has the keys to the store. So we charged a little bit, and a few more groceries, and continued to put pancakes for the rest of the morning. But yeah, it was a good fundraiser, and we've already reserved the place for next Homesteaders Sunday for the next pancake breakfast. Everybody's invited to attend. Bring your money.
so we were very, very well supported that way. So it was very encouraging. So we're just wanted to keep you guys all in our loop.
But I do have one question. That road that you say, Central, goes down behind the park. How
All
far does it
the
go?
way to the school property.
All to the school property. So even if we couldn't get the county, there is a bottom part down there.
80 foot wide, that's 80 foot wide street.
80 foot wide street.
That's plenty of room for
And actually, it's probably about where the bank drops off is the street. So it's about the edge of that bank all the way along there is pretty much.
So that was my other question. If they say no, we still have city property. We just don't have to build in the swamp. We could move it down and put access down.
a meandering trail from the park.
Yeah.
It'd probably be good
Through the
for the
swamp.
library, right? You could buy it, get you some good foot traffic.
And I did mention to the library that in communities that have pickleball courts, that some people are just raising Cain about the noise. And so with the,
They're being sued all over.
Yeah, so we have a library and
ball and the paddles,
It's a constant.
huge.
Yeah.
People are suing against them.
Yeah, I think Denver actually shut.
But Starla mentioned, pointed out that we're right next to the school playground, how much noisier it can get.
They might even quiet down to watch a game.
Yeah. So, okay, that is all, thank you.
Okay. Pay rates for employees, we're gonna put that off. I think that was in your packet, but the county's giving 4%. Normally, we don't go a percentage, we just go a set amount, where it's 50 cents, 75 cents, dollars, depending on the employer. We got a couple of employees we need to bring up, I think are being a little underpaid, they're way too much. One employee is going $1.50, another one is going $10. So we need to look at that a little bit. So those are the counties running about 4%. So
we're going to table and
approve some
bring it up
raises?
next time?
Yeah, we just did the big COLAs this year, right?
no, you haven't approved any raises or any COLAs.
No, we did a while back.
A year ago.
Yeah, we're in a new fiscal year now.
Yeah, we got to approve it.
So this was a resolution we did last year. We're not voting on a resolution. When I put it in your packet, it was just for information purposes of where everybody is at. These were the wages that were set last year.
Yep, that was last year.
When we did the budget last year.
So which employees?
All employees.
All of them.
Well, except for law enforcement. Law enforcement.
Yeah, law enforcement just got their.
That's all, the law enforcement's not in this. This is the City Hall, the Public Works Service.
Library.
Well, no, we're not, library doesn't.
Oh,
So,
they're on here.
so yeah, it's
Well,
just,
this resolution will have to be passed with the budgets and the libraries.
right, so the library employees, they set the wages,
This was
we
just
don't.
put in for
But we have to
information
approve them.
purposes.
I see.
So the library board will set their wages and all that. So the judge, the lawyer, and there's some.
Got it.
So just for a rule of thumb, like I said, I know the county's looking at 4%. I was just talking to the lady that's on the wage committee, and she said that's going to be settled. I know a couple of the employees throughout the county were getting, I know one was getting they presented an 8% wage raise if the commissioners approve it for, because they felt some employees were a little underpaid, so they're going to bring them up. So that's, but generally straight through was 4%. Next item, I was out a bunch, so this probably should never have came to the council. This is a water wastewater bill dispute of charges. So I had a property owner that has a rental. The property owner is an absentee owner. He's out of the country, literally out of country, 10 months out of the
He
year.
bought it after she was already living there when he bought it.
So the renter was already living there, so the, part of this is it's in a in-between period. So before whatever the date is, 3 years ago or whatever, the deposit can be waived by the owner of the property. So when a renter moves into a property, the owner can sign a piece of paper and waive the water security deposit. So that had happened, but it was not this owner. So this owner then bought the property, inherited the renter, knew nothing about the water security deposit. The renter then did not pay their bill for months, which we end up going, hanging the tags, doing our process, and turning the water off. Trouble is the owner didn't know any of this was going on because he's out of country.
Well, and for a couple of months, he wasn't receiving any mail. It costs a lot of money to send
Right,
mail
so-
there, and he was coming back, and by the time they went through the whole process of getting it to him, he did not have his mail forwarded.
So he was being notified as
I-
the owner, but he didn't get it.
I don't believe he was,
No.
our policy is
Oh.
not to notify the owners.
Oh, I thought you said you were mailing.
No, but it wouldn't have mattered, he wouldn't.
It wouldn't have mattered. So what happens
Okay, I
now?
wasn't sure what the process was.
So what happens today, if you're a renter, you pay your water bill, and you have to pay a $200 security deposit. You quit paying your water bill, we do start the shut-off notice process. And by the time we get to the turn-off, you've roughly burned up your $200 credit. That's how it's figured that way. So when we get to the point of turning you off, if you're just a normal water user, your water credit then will be spent on the water bill you didn't pay. So the landowner then really doesn't get charged for anything. But this fell into one of those people who was done before we implemented that process. And one of the things with this is one of the things we talked about in the office too, is maybe when it gets to the point of turn off, maybe the landowner needs to get a letter just saying that we're turning the water off at your rental, just so they know that it's being
Yeah, I
turned
fully
on.
agree with that.
Just to advise them of it. So anyway, so it ends up being the bill, but it's been our policy for the last 16 years that I've been mayor, and it was the policy of the mayors before me. Water bills all get paid. Water and sewer gets paid no matter what. If we have to put other taxes or do whatever, that's a fee, it's a usage, and as a government, we can't forgive certain things. Just like when you pay with a credit card, we have to charge your credit card fees and all that. Everyone has to be paid fairly. We have to charge everyone fairly, everyone pays fairly. So fees, the base fees, the usage fees have to be charged. So what he's asking for is to forgive all that, and what I explained is we charge those fees no matter what. So whether the house is being lived in or not, or we had a renter, they pay, whatever, those monthly bills get paid no matter what. The only thing we can do for him is forgive the late fees, would be my suggestion. That's normally how we do this, especially in a circumstance like this where he's out of country, he's inherited this. It's kind of when we kind of investigated a little bit. That would be my suggestion. That's what I would have done if I was in the office, but I wasn't going in.
We actually offered him that, and he said he still would like to have the whole bill forgiven.
Of course he would.
And that's when we offered him that before he sent this letter.
So that's normally how we've done it for the last 16 years. As long as I've been mayor, we have never forgiven a water bill. We have worked with people on some different things or done some different stuff, but the water bill is always paid. Of course, we work with people all winter long that have water leaks and stuff like that because of a broken pipe or all that. We work with them all the time. Behind the scenes, you guys don't even know about it. But we take care of that. So they're treated fairly is the best thing we can do. The renter is there. There's still a base fee. Even if no one lives in the house, there's still a base fee goes on. We charge that base fee no matter what. So even if she wasn't living there or whatever, there's still a base fee. That money's still owed, whether you're the owner, the landlord, or the renter, or what. The fees are all the same.
I understand the renter is not there and the place is vacant. So are we charging him the base fee?
Yes, we are. Also, he's behind on his own water bill because of the timing of everything, and Jerry was allowing him to give him blank checks or pre-written checks, and we told him that was not allowed, and that he would have to find another way to pay his bill, because that is not allowed. When I found that out, it was when
The guy
Jerry
was
left.
giving him and Jerry a handful of blank checks, signed checks.
And so-
Jerry was leaving them in the desk drawer and just signed.
Well, I guess if you're gonna have a rental and live out of country, you need to hire a property manager.
Yeah.
And
Here, here's my other bills.
Yeah, so his own bill was actually a little bit late also, and because the only way I had to get a hold of him was on Facebook, because it was the only way I knew how to get a hold of him. And he's 18 hours, 12 hours, I don't know the difference, so we're messaging each other in the middle of the night. But, so we did tell him, you know what, when you get back, come on in, we'll get your account straightened out, blah, blah. And he knew at that point, because of Facebook messages, that she wasn't there and her bill wasn't being paid.
Sounds like he's not doing his due diligence, and I agree with taking off the late fees, but he's still responsible.
He knew it wasn't being paid, he didn't know he was going to be responsible for it. I guess
Well, when you buy a house, you should probably,
You're the owner.
So that's where we're at with that. So my suggestion to council is we waive the late fees, but still charge the same amount. So I have a motion.
I make a motion that we waive the late fees and charge them the base fees.
Motion made a second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now for the fun time of the evening, public comment on non-agenda items.
I just have one.
Oh, Deb was standing up. Stand up and talk.
Thank you. I have one quick thing.
Yes.
When we create a new ordinance, like the one for the travel trailers and things parked on the road and all that stuff, how does everybody besides going to the meetings, how does everybody in the town, how are they notified about that? How do they know?
The public meetings are posted. We have public meetings on it.
We had public meetings.
But that's the only
I
way
heard of
that we do that. So it's your responsibility as a citizen just to keep track of what's going on by reading the bulletin board like City Hall.
Okay.
And we have 3 readings before it's.
Right, I mean, it.
And actually, that one got 4.
I got 4 readings, so it's 4
You're
months.
bored of it by the time it passes.
I mean, I was just wondering if there was something like sent out to homeowners or.
No, and years ago, one of the things we did a ordinance book review. We went page by page the whole thing. It took over a year, I think 18 months. So once a month, we had a special meeting for 1 hour and did ordinance review. So we just started at the front of the book and went through. Advertised the public every month, we're doing this, talked about that at every council meeting, gave a report on what we talked about for 18 months. And when we went, the last reading of the new ordinance book, the last reading the last night, over 18 months into this, we have people come and say, well, we didn't know nothing about this. Well, I mean, then you haven't done your diligence as a citizen to try and stay informed. Because that was talked about twice a month for 18 months. I mean, so.
And they're available at City Hall, and you have them online too, and she can email them.
I believe, yeah, those were all so much.
It's, and then people feel they're getting blindsided by it, but that's about the best we can do. The expense of sending a letter to every single person in town would be, 400 residents or whatever, you're with time, $600, $700, $800 for doing that, so.
I pay your water bill in person. Check
Yeah,
out what's going on in town.
Yep, so. Any
You
other
can
public
come
comment?
see Jerry in town, in City Hall for the next few months.
Yeah,
What was that?
Jerry had to come back for a few months.
I just wanted to say thank you to the town for putting a layer of gravel out there on the east side of Main Street. I'm sorry about the late time coming on that, but you guys really stepped up and it still looks wonderful. I know it's not gonna last forever, but it really helped out.
A lot.
And the other thing is, we didn't talk about it, but the power is getting really close.
How close?
The park.
It's in Bishop Valley Powers Court.
I keep hearing grumbling from people about that, and I keep telling them, you know what, it's in the works.
I moved the stake.
I go to the meetings and I talk to, I talk to Ed and so,
In our claims this time, and there's actually engineer's drawing and everything else with it, there was a claim for $546. We have to pay that before, and I just got it, I don't know when I got it, but I had to come to council for approval for the claims and stuff like that, so it gets sent out tomorrow. I don't know that that's what's holding them up because they've still called us a bunch of times.
We're on the list, and we have a work order now, but they have a ton of work orders, so I've asked to have the power pole dropped off on the site, lay it on the ground. We will take and build the service on it while it's on the ground, they'll auger it, set it, and there we go.
Okay.
But I had to pull teeth to get the stake moved. They had it all the way over by the chain link fence. And I wanted it back behind the pavilion, kind of keep all the obstructions all kind of in one spot. And we need the power close there anyway. And so after Randy called Jimmy and got permission to move the stake, I went out and put it where we want it.
Okay.
Thank you.
But Ed had no power.
But that's what I've been telling people is it is in the works. I'm hearing it, I'm seeing it, it's
But
in the works.
just for instance, I applied for electrical service to be installed. Actually, my meter pole is in, and my meter base and everything is on it in Arizona. And I applied for that in January. I filed the paperwork and paid it in January, and they've done that yet. So that's power companies are working slow.
I also asked them too, we have a pole there now that has a yard light on it in front. I asked them when we get our new pole set with the service on it, to relocate that yard light onto that and pull that pole out of there.
That was nice.
Okay, anything else from the public? There's nothing, I have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, aye?
First time, let's about that.
Good side, good, that's everything.